Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Friends and Fiction Show. I'm Ron Block.
And I am Patti Callahan Henry.
And this is Friends and Fiction, 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories to support indie bookstores, authors, and librarians. On this week's show, Patti and I are beyond thrilled to welcome Chris Whitaker to discuss his new novel, All the Colors of the Dark. The book was just released on June 25th, and we're really excited to talk to Chris about it.
But first, before we dive into that, so funny, we do the same tagline every week, which is, and the art of storytelling. And when I was listening to that right now, I was thinking, talk about the art of storytelling. Chris Whitaker, right? But before we dive in, we have just a quick reminder to check out all of the simply amazing things going on in our Friends and Fiction community at friendsandfiction.com.
Okay. And there you'll find our show schedule, details on upcoming in-person events, and links to our bookshop.org page, and the Friends and Fiction official book club with Brenda and Lisa. Also to our merch store, our book subscription box, and our weekly email newsletter sign-up. In other words, if you want to know more about anything Friends and Fiction offers, we offer a lot. Be sure to check out friendsandfiction.com.
And speaking of things we offer, this year it's really exciting because our 2024 Friends and Fiction subscription box, which is going fast. I think there's only a few left. I know. As you may know, both Mary Kay Andrews and Kristy Woodson Harvey had hardcovers out this summer. And if you order this book bundle or subscription box from our friends at Oxford Exchange, you get a hand-signed first edition of both books, along with some really exclusive, cool Friends and Fiction swag, which I don't even have yet. So
I don't either.
I know. You can even add on the new paperback edition of My Secret Book of Flora Lee and Kristin's The Paris Daughter. And those will come signed as well. They make a great gift for a friend, even if that friend is, well, you.
Yeah. Okay, remember that Mary Kay's new novel, Summers at the Saint, which we all love so much, is already out. And Kristy's latest, A Happier Life, just came out yesterday on June 25th. And we're so excited for people to get their hands on that one.
Yep. And as a bonus, we are all going to be somewhere else besides this screen together. We will all be live together in person, in real life, not 3D virtual. Me, Mary Kay, Kristin, and Kristy for Kristin's launch. Yep. We'll be together on Friday, June 28th to celebrate the launch of Kristy's A Happier Life in St. Louis, Missouri. So meet me in St. Louis. And you don't want to miss it. So find out the details and the ticketing on Kristy's website, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and you can meet us there.
And you may not know this, but I'm going to join you.
Oh, Ron, I'm so glad you're going to be there.
Yeah.
It's how far is it from Cleveland?
Oh, it's too far to drive. So I'll fly. But there's a direct flight, believe it or not.
I feel like Chris Whitaker has a better knowledge of American geography than I do sometimes, according to this book. But okay, go ahead.
Okay, speaking of great releases that we're excited about, let's be sure and welcome our friend Chris Whitaker. Chris is the award-winning author of Tall Oaks, All the Wicked Girls, and the New York Times bestseller, We Begin at the End.
His debut novel, Tall Oaks, won the CWA John Creasy New Blood Dagger Award. New Blood Dagger. I bet I'd never win that award. We Begin at the End was a novel that I was an evangelist for, as was Ron. I told everyone about this book. It was also a Waterstones Thriller of the Month, a Barnes & Noble Book Club pick, and a Good Morning America Buzz pick. The novel won the CWA Gold Dagger Award, which sounds better than the Blood Dagger Award. I don't know.
They're all daggers.
I know. The Fiction Crime Novel of the Year and the Ned Kelly International Award and numerous other awards around the world.
Yes. We Begin at the End has also been translated into 29 languages, with screen rights going to Disney. Chris lives in the UK. His new novel, All the Colors of the Dark, was just released on June 25th, as we said, and it's both a soaring thriller and an epic love story that spans decades. Gillian Flynn, author of Gone Girl, accurately called it, said about it, this book hits like a sledgehammer. It's an absolutely must-read novel, and I could not agree with more of that. Sean, can you bring Chris on?
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Welcome back to the Friends in Fiction Show. We are so excited to dig in and talk about All the Colors of the Dark.
Thank you. Thank you for the lovely intro as well. I can't believe Gillian Flynn said that. Can you believe
Isn't
that?
that amazing?
That's just one of many, many, many people who said incredible things about
I was
the book.
am such a big fan of Gone Girl and all of her books, but Gone Girl was like, really.
Yeah, Gone Girl pretty much started a whole genre, to be honest.
It did, and I really loved the movie as well.
Yeah.
It was perfectly cast. I just, loved it.
Well, if anybody goes online, they will see all the other many, many accolades, including from our friend Kristin Harmel. But we wanted to spend our time talking to you instead of about you. Mm-hmm. So congratulations for all the accolades and the well-deserved praise. You know that I love this book because I posted about it a couple times and I wrote to you about it. Yeah. So this book is a stunning twist on what we might think are familiar themes, but you turn them upside down. It's a love story, a missing person search, a serial killer mystery, a coming of age. The year is 1975 when a local girl is targeted and an unlikely hero emerges. A young boy who thinks he's a pirate named Patch. Then the search takes on a new and more obsessive quality. What would you add to that for what it's about? And then our favorite question, what do you think it's really about?
That is a really good question. So I had to, when I was following We Begin at the End, I didn't realize that We Begin at the End was going to be like a big book because the first two, like the first one won an award. And then I think the thing that people don't really know about publishing is, like you get so excited, don't you? You're going to be a published author and then the book publishes and it's brilliant, but nothing really happens a lot of the time. Yeah, it's like financially, it's really tough, and then you have to write another book, then another book, and I didn't know what to do kind of after We Begin at the End. But I had a rough idea, and I had this really simple kind of 2-line pitch, and it was 2 abducted teenagers fall in love in the pitch black basement they're being held in, having never seen each other. The boy escapes and can't find his way back to the girl, and I knew that kind of the police, they wouldn't believe him. They think he conjured her from his mind because it was so dark and kind of traumatic down there. But he knows in his heart that she's real. So I kind of pitched it like that, which sounds a bit like a crime story. And then started writing it, and it became, this 27-year hunt, this epic, and that in itself became a kind of love story because Patch believes kind of that this girl is his soulmate, or he's certainly obsessed with her, and then can't let her go, and then what is it really about? I think it's about friendship. I think it's about friendship, and I also think it's about the sliding doors moments in our lives. When something happens and it changes the trajectory of your entire life. And this thing happens at the beginning of the book. Patch intervenes in an abduction, gets taken himself, and then from then on, no one's life is the same. No one in that town, no one connected to him, and I really like that idea. I like the idea of alternate lives, and if he hadn't intervened, what would his life have looked like?
And it's a millisecond decision too, without giving anything away.
Yeah,
and the first thing you think of when you read that scene is 10 steps before, 10 steps after, a decision not to leave when they did, right? That's the sliding door.
Yeah.
And it would have been a completely different story. And Patch would have become a completely different person.
Yeah, he would have. I'm not even sure it's a choice. I think it's something innate. I think you either do it or you don't do it. And you don't have time to consider whether it's a brave thing or it's or foolish or whatever. I just think some people are born that way.
Yep, and Patch is one of them. Yep.
compelled to act. So you talked a little bit about the origin of the story. Can you pinpoint the time when you said, okay, this is my next book?
So I was thinking back to my own kind of sliding doors moment, strangely. And my parents divorced when I was really young. And the thing, like with divorce, new people come into your life. And my mum was dating someone at the time, and he was a bit of a drinker and quite violent. And I was asleep one night, and he pulled me out of my bed by my arm, and we both heard my arm break. And
oh, Chris.
Yeah. And then I wasn't allowed to get help or anything because he was like worried he was going to get in trouble. So I had like a really long night until the morning and then I told my parents that I had hurt myself playing football. And after that, it was kind of my sliding doors moment.
Yeah.
Because I stopped sleeping after that and still don't sleep now. Like I've had a lifetime of sleep problems. And I've talked before about I was stabbed when I was 19, and I think when I look back, I think I had a problem because I felt like a victim when I was 10. So when I was 19, when someone tried to steal my cell phone, I flat out refused, even when they pulled out a knife. And I think that was my moment. And I think there might have been an alternate version, of my life where that didn't happen to me. And I wonder, and I started to unpick everything, like losing loads of money when I worked in the city. I thought maybe I did that because I refused to ask for help at any point. I always try and get myself out of trouble. And so that was kind of the basis for Patch and this story. And
it's the sudden violence, right, Chris? Right? You're sleeping, violent. You're just living your life in the city, violent, right? It's the sudden act upon you.
Yeah, and you can never...
Nothing you brought on yourself. It was upon you, done unto
Not a
you.
situation.
Yeah. But none of us know. Like we could walk out the door tomorrow and something bad could happen. And it's how you cope with it and how it changes you afterwards that I was really interested in. The crime itself is always the least interesting thing in the story.
Yep.
And then it's afterwards. So I knew I had something. I didn't realize it would take as long to write or it would turn into as big a book as it did. Because I think I missed my deadline by like 2 years or something.
It takes what it takes.
It's okay.
It takes what it takes.
It does.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everybody that the last time we spoke to you, Chris, you told us about the article in The Guardian from 2020, and that if anybody wants to go back and search for that is such a powerful piece and explains so much about your path to becoming a writer. It's still very powerful. I actually just shared it with my own son, and I said, "This you have to read this article." So, anybody wants to go back and do that, please do.
It was funny, right before I came on the recording, my daughter is visiting and she has 2 little ones. And she said, well, what's the book about? And I told her, and she said, why would you read a book about a serial killer? Because she knows how I am. I went, oh, but that's not what it's about. That's not what it's about. Like, it's about so much more. It's about these choices we make, and love and friendship and perseverance and resilience. And
I like a book that's quite hard to pitch. Because I love Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And I remember I was trying to pitch it to my dad and I really struggled with it.
Yep.
And he read it and loved it.
Yeah. And you can never, a book like this or any epic, like think about The Women by Kristin Harmel. You can say it's about a Vietnam nurse, but it's not.
No,
right?
It doesn't scratch the surface.
It doesn't even, So it's very hard. And it's the worst question I think an author can get is, what is it about? Which is why I always try and at least give you like a handful.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think you can tell them what one part of the book is about, Otherwise it rambles on and then becomes something else, like a terrible thing.
Or like you described, the setup. You can describe the setup or the inciting incident. But after that, how was it to write this after We Begin at the End? You talked a little bit about that, but I feel like, and you already know this, I love Duchess. And I feel like she might have influenced this novel a little bit. And Duchess is partly you, and Duchess is fully herself. But I feel like I see some of her in Saint and Patch, both.
Yeah, for sure. It was a nightmare to write it. It was really, the thing about writing is, like with most things, let's say you're cooking or something, the more you do it, the better you get. And the more
Not writing.
the writing, the more I do it, the harder I find it.
Yeah.
Like really, it's the opposite way around. Like every book I finish every book thinking I can never do this again. Like genuinely,
I can never do this again.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. And so I had that slightly after We Begin at the End, but also the world was like imploding because it was COVID, and we had bought a house, and we had the roof taken off because we were extending it the day before lockdown, and then we couldn't get like building supplies, and my wife was pregnant, and ex-wife pregnant, and about to give birth. And
Oh my God, Chris.
so we had like a newborn in the shell of a house with COVID, and We Begin at the End coming out to do publicity for. And it was just a total nightmare.
Oh,
it sounds like you made a list of everything that could go wrong,
Exactly.
and then put them in one big pot at the same time.
But then it got worse because I was a trader. I still trade in the stock market. And I was trading one morning in the shell of a house, and the phone rang, and I was told that I was going to be arrested for stock market manipulation, like a stock market crime. And so like I had this, and I didn't tell anyone at the time, but because We Begin at the End was coming out, and I thought it's going to mess everything up. So I found a lawyer, and it was a total nightmare. But I had this really surreal moment where I went into London and I sat in the law office with my lawyer, and then I was virtually arrested over the over a Zoom thing. So,
I don't make you laugh, but oh my God.
Mad, isn't it? So they read me my rights like over the thing, and I'm thinking at any point I could just get up and walk out. This is like a bit mad. And then so we basically argued it for ages, but it went on for like 7 months. I was under investigation, and I didn't know if it was going to be criminal or civil. And eventually, I remember I was picking my kids up from school, and my phone rang again, and they said, "Oh, we need to talk to you." And I hadn't heard from them for months, and they just told me that they were dropping the case. And but it was the pressure of it, and like the sliding doors moment. I always feel like I'm going to mess everything up. Like I'll be going along okay, and then I think I'll do something.
And then you get a phone call, and then you're being arrested, and your roof is off, and COVID hits, and you have a baby coming.
Exactly.
Chris, we need a new screenwriter for the movie of your life. Okay? Can we?
Yes.
Nobody's
out there. Let's go. Let's go. Wow.
I know.
Well, you sure do know how to alchemize your life into story.
I do.
And I think that's one of the greatest gifts of writing. Because if all that was going on while We Begin at the End was coming out and getting such great acclaim, you alchemized all of that into these amazing characters.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But it was writing again that I turned to. It's so much stress, but without Patch and Saint and Sammy and everyone, I don't know how I'd get through it, because I need
Sammy.
Yeah,
we need them as much as they need us to exist.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
And these characters now in the book make so much more sense to me. Not that they didn't already, and I didn't love them, but now I have a deeper appreciation for them. But you have this gift of writing these amazing characters, and they totally connect with readers. So yes, we have Patch and we have Saint, we have some of the other big names in it, but some of the lesser characters are so fully formed. And I want to know kind of what I was going to ask where they all come from, but now I think I kind of know. So people like, Chief Nix and Grace, who may or may not be real, and Charlotte and Sammy, they just fleshed the story out for you. So who came first in this array of fascinating characters as you were writing, or did they all kind of come together at once as a group?
No, they always start, like We Begin at the End started with Duchess for maybe 6 months or a year or something of actual writing. And the same, this was Patch and Saint at the very beginning, and it was very much their show. But then you start to build up around them, and I probably wrote like 1 million words or something, and then it was cut back down to 160,000. Yeah, something crazy. So there's like 100,000 over all the different characters, like 100,000 each or something like that. And then I begin to strip it back. But I write out of order as well. So the first year will just be like writing random scenes and dialogue, loads of dialogue, until you feel a bit more like who the characters are. And then I like to find the good in them, in all of them. You know, they're far more
Yes.
interesting. And I believe that people are innately good. So if you have a character like Chief Nix, what are his flaws? But then more importantly, what do we love about him? Or what will we love about him by the end of the book? And I try and answer those questions for every character throughout the book. Yeah.
Do you answer them before you start writing them? Like, did you, like, once I understood Nix, I just, like, my heart was so soft. So I don't, you know, do you know that before you start writing?
No, I don't.
No, you write into it. Okay.
Yeah. And it takes a long time sometimes. And sometimes I just burn a character because I haven't found something that I really love about them, and they'll be gone. And so I'm sure there's a better way to write a book. I just like a more efficient way. I just haven't found it yet.
Maybe, but don't change a thing. Don't you dare change a thing.
No,
I think
I worry about it.
Coach Nix. I think Chief Nix could have his own novel.
Yeah.
I really
He could. Yeah, his early years. I would love to read that. Yeah,
I would like to write that, Ron. Actually.
Okay. All right.
We're in for it.
We're in.
Patti and Ron said, you could go tell Amy we said that. So each of the young characters have their own, like you said, you find the light, but they also have their own trauma, and they also have their own obsessions, and they also have the things they can't let go of. We aren't going to do any spoilers, but she can't let go of certain things, and yet her integrity is making her do the right things. So how do you think that the trauma and the obsessions form who they become? Like, there's the wounds and the trauma, but there's other things too, like their internal obsessions and her grandmother. How do you think that forms who they become?
I think of all the characters I've ever written, I would most like to have Saint in my life.
Ditto. Yeah.
I think she is just, she's really pure, but not in like a puritanical way. And she's just, her
integrity. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that whatever had happened, you know, even if Patch had not stepped in, if Saint hadn't become obsessed with helping Patch on his quest, I think she would have done something great or achieved something amazing. And I think that Patch, it's a difficult one with Patch, because I was thinking back over my own life, and I think that if all of the bad things hadn't happened, or the things that I'm not proud of, you know, I wouldn't be able to write the books that I do now. But is it worth it? You know, is the payoff ever worth it? I'm not sure that it is. It depends how bad the childhood is. For Patch, he does this amazing thing, and then terrible things happen. But he also, you know, because of it, his world is opened, you know, in such a big way. He gets to see the most beautiful sights. He becomes an artist. You know, he finds this amazing gift that he probably wouldn't have found had this terrible thing not happened. And I find things like that fascinating. Like, I certainly wouldn't have found writing had I not been stabbed when I was 19. You know, like, it's just, I find things like that really interesting.
And it informs our life. I think what I always think about with that is, I don't know if I believe in like, oh, that was meant to happen.
Yeah,
but I do think that we're responsible for making meaning out of it.
Yes.
And
that's really well put. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, we get to choose the path forward. We can't change the past. But so, God, I want to do spoilers so bad.
I know we cannot.
I know. No, the people. I know. I'm just so excited for people to read this and find all of this out for themselves. But one of the things that is just so incredible about your work, Chris, is that your settings are so precise, and they're really they're very American, which you are not, based on your accent.
No.
Can you talk about where you decide to set your books, and why America, and what intrigues you about that?
Yeah. So why America? After I was stabbed, I had like a PTSD. Well, I didn't know it was PTSD at the time. I just really struggled, and I got a self-help book from the library. And they talked about a technique, like a therapeutic exercise, where you take the traumatic incident and you write about what happened, but you change the people involved to fictional characters. You change the setting to the last place you were happy, and you change the outcome to something you're more kind of in control of. I think it's an exercise in control. because something's happened that you had no control over, and now you're trying to regain some of that. And America was my setting, because the last place I was happy, my dad took me and my brother to Disney when we were kids in Florida. And so I look back to when I was like, I think I was like 6 or 7, and that was like my happy place. So when I sat down to write, it was naturally, I'm going to close my eyes, travel 4,000 miles and be somewhere completely new. And like with writing, I feel like, so say I'm writing Patch, and I've been through something similar to Patch, and I'm writing a scene. Right. To set it in the UK or in London would feel so close to home. I think it would be a distraction. So I need to transplant everything, because although I'm projecting, it's not, it's needed. Like that escapism, it needs to be brand new. It needs to be something else. And America fits, particularly this story, America fits in a way that the UK definitely wouldn't, because it becomes this, he travels across most of the States, and the UK is too small, and
it's sprawling. Yeah.
Gives you a bigger set.
Yeah. And I think creatively you need that, you need a canvas that is almost infinite.
Right. So as Patti mentioned at the beginning, the book starts out in 1975. What made you decide to start the story at that particular time?
Nothing in particular, really. I knew roughly where I wanted it to end, which was a similar time period to when We Begin at the End took place. So I wanted it to end around there, and I knew that it would span around 25 years. So I began to count back, and then began to look at the US around that time. And then just by chance, well, I imagine most of it is fascinating, but it was really fascinating. It was such an interesting time politically, but you have these kids that wouldn't necessarily care about anything like that. And I really didn't want to get bogged down in like historical detail, or, sometimes when you read something set in the 80s, and the 80s are kind of rammed down your throat, the culture. I just wanted it to be slightly more subtle. And yeah, the 70s, it was really fun though. And now I found out that it qualifies as historical fiction.
Yes,
there you go.
It isn't even that long ago, is it? To me, it's
I was in elementary. Come on. Like, I remember I listened to 70s on 7 on my radio. Come on, right? Like,
how can it be historical fiction?
I know.
Right.
I know. Yeah. So my last 2 novels, and I didn't even think about why, are both very American, obviously, and are set in the UK. One outside of Oxford in Binsey, and the one coming out next year in the Lake District. And there's something about being able, I do the research, I visit the places, like I don't just use them.
That's partly why. So you can
I don't know. Now I'm wondering, like, maybe it's easier for me to put these people in these situations I might be struggling with, and have them in a new atmosphere, right? In a land that I wouldn't usually be in. Yeah. So you're making me think about that. That's really interesting.
I love the Lake District.
Oh gosh, I just got back about a month ago.
Okay.
It was, and I love London. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. But
yeah.
All right, enough about me. This suspense is palpable, like page turning, truly heart beating, palpable.
Yes.
Rarely do I dream about a book, but I did have a bad dream about it. Can you tell me if you knew what was going to happen, if you knew the answer to the questions that we all have while we're turning the pages? In other words, did you outline what would happen, or did you just make a run for it, Chris?
No, there's never any outline. I really want to know what your dream was about. Was it really bad?
Yes. I was in a room, and it was dark, and the doors were closed, and water was coming up underneath.
Oh, God.
I know.
Really bad. That's really scary.
I know. And you didn't even do that in your book, but...
No, but I still feel like I should apologize. So there we go.
You know what? It just shows you how great it was that it was my subconscious was...
It made its way into your dreams, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so no outlining. I've never outlined, but I do know how it will end. So whenever I sit down... Yeah, so whenever I sit down to write, I know how the book will end, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. Yeah, so the journey...
In other words, we begin at the end.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
It is said that Margaret Mitchell knew the last line of Gone with the Wind and wrote towards it.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Well, yeah, similar. Like I knew how We Begin at the End would end, and I knew how All the Colours of the Dark would end. But how you get there, for me, it's the
great mystery.
it's the journey that's more fun than the destination. Which is which is the opposite of Patch in the book. He's all about the destination, and he misses all of the journey that he's been on.
He misses all of it until he doesn't.
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to talk about thematic things for a second, because you are so adept at portraying beauty and even hope and laughter, but through tragedy and trauma, right? Some of these characters say these laugh out loud, witty
Charlotte
or the art store owner. I mean, come on. Sometimes he'd say something, I'd be like, I can't laugh at that. It's so wrong. I can't, but I do. Right. He's so bad. So this theme runs through your work, how you can do this through tragedy and trauma. And it's often said, and I do believe it's true, and we've just talked about it here, that as authors, there's always a theme we return to again and again. Do you feel this in your work? Is this something you struggle with and face head on? Is it something you see or only see when you're done writing?
I like writing the humor. Like I love a love story and I love a heartbreaking scene, but the humor, I've said before that writing the tough stuff is a bit like drowning, and writing a Charlotte or a Sammy is like coming up for air, and you really need that air. If you're going to spend 4 years writing something, you really need those parts. And also I think the light makes the dark stuff even darker sometimes.
Yes.
And we're looking at some really dark things, and the abduction of a child, and if you're following someone over 27 years, you need to see the fun stuff. You need to see some of the happiness, because life is never linear, and as a writer, I find it more interesting. And it definitely has a place. Humor and love and all the good things, I think, have a place in pretty much every story that is told. And I struggle reading, actually. If I read something that's too dark, and it's like unremittingly dark, I find that it affects my mood slightly.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you have an antidote for that in your stories, right? It's almost like an antidote as you're winding your way through the pages. So
yeah, I think so. And this one has really short chapters as well.
Yeah.
And you never get, you often find something else coming very quickly, if you find it too much, or
you come up for air.
Yeah, and that was kind of a conscious decision, because I knew it was going to be a long book, and the short chapters. I like a book with short chapters, because you can break often, can't you? And you don't have to. Sometimes when you want to break at the end of the next chapter and it's 50 pages away, it can feel daunting. But
No, the short chapters are great, but but you have to do it very succinctly so we really get the idea of what you're saying. So if you don't do that, it all falls apart.
Yeah, and
you're so good at this.
Yeah.
It makes me go, boom! I gotta read. I didn't want to stop. I kept going and going and going.
Yeah, one more page. That's what you want,
right? Right. That's exactly what happened. So we've talked about this just a little bit, and everybody's trying to classify this novel. Is it a love story? Is it a serial killer thriller? Is it a mystery? It's a coming of age story, but I think it's really genre defying. Amy Einhorn, the great Amy Einhorn, said, Chris is doing such a mix of different kinds of stories. He's not easily classified. And for books that are about very dark things, there's a real sense of humor and a tremendous amount of heart. And I think that really captures it. How would you define the book, or would you even try?
It's funny because I did an event in London at the weekend, and someone asked that question at the end, and they said, "Do you? Is it something you consider when you're writing it? At the beginning?" And like I'd never considered it. I think writing, if you were to write to a trend or anything like that, it's kind of the enemy of creativity. That's what it feels like to me, and so it's the last thing I consider, how they're going to publish the book, where they're going to put it. I want to tell the story that I want to tell, and then the really talented people get involved and they start to work out how to package it and where to put it. But we had endless conversations about about where it's going to sit in the bookshop. And I worked in a library for a while, and I loved it.
Yes.
It was like my best job ever. And we used to have those discussions about where to shelve things. And it was fascinating because if you shelve all the colours in the dark in the crime section, you'll miss a ton of readers that would just never go into the crime section. And if you do, you know, general fiction or call it a love story, you will miss, you know,
all the people who love thrillers, right?
Exactly. And it's really technical and really interesting. And the same with the jacket. You know, how do you design a cover that it's just really, and they're so good. That's like Amy and her team. They're just so good at what they do. But where would you put it? What would you classify as, out of interest?
I'd buy a copy and put one in each section. I put one in each of them so that no matter what their interests are, because I think, and this has happened before, no two people are going to get it right. You know what I mean? They're not going to agree completely on it. And I'm already planning as a librarian, I'm going to go, want a love story? Here you go. You want a serial killer story? Here you go. You want a mystery? Here you go. Nice. Like it's all there. So it's one-stop shopping for everybody.
My genre for it is epic. So I don't know if they have an epic genre, but that's where we're going to put it.
Yeah, that works.
That'll work, right? Mm-hmm. All right. I'm going to shift gears because I want to talk about the movie, the We Begin at the End movie. Okay. I want to know if you have any information coming up, what's going on with it, and if I can have a cameo where I just walk across the camera and go, I am an outlaw, and keep going. That's all I want. Just that little thing.
That'll be the intro to the movie.
Yeah. I wish I had information, but I've learned
nothing yet.
I've learned with these things that they take forever. Yeah. And you get really close and you get really excited, and then they talk about casting, and then it goes away. Then it comes back in a different guise. And so
it's like a bad girlfriend.
Yeah.
Who teases you and then ghosts you and then comes back.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I'm gonna use that from now on. That's what I'm gonna tell them.
That's good.
I'm gonna tell Disney that they're a bad girlfriend.
They'll take that just fine.
And I love that Disney was your happy place, and now they're a bad girlfriend.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
it's the circle of life.
Yeah, but I just I've loved every second of it, of just being part of that conversation, you know, and part of that world. But it still seems really alien to me. You know, when you read a script and it's just,
Well, we'll be first in line anywhere, wherever it is.
Script is pretty,
Yeah, it is. Okay. Oh, I can't believe we're at this point already. But Chris, if you'd stick around, we have one more question for you at the end.
Okay.
But first, a few quick reminders to our listeners and viewers out there.
For all of you watching and listening, obviously we've already talked you into it just by listening to Chris. But we encourage you to rush out and buy your copies of All the Colors of the Dark. The perfect place to do that is the Friends and Fiction Bookshop on bookshop.org, which I think you know is the website that supports independent booksellers nationwide. You'll be getting the book at a discount and helping our show and supporting our guests and indie bookstores.
We also want to remind you to follow us on Instagram and join our Facebook group, which is nearly 250,000 members strong.
I can't believe
When you visit friendsandfiction.com, you can stay up to date about everything we have going on. You can sign up for our weekly email newsletter, which is chock full of bonus content.
And we have an incredible interview with Chris in that newsletter, and you don't want to miss it. We talk about things in the newsletter that we don't talk about on the show. So, Chris, we often talk about how books change us when we read them, right? You read a novel that we can all make a list of the novels that have really influenced us. But with an immersive and deeply felt and 4 years long writing of this novel, I'd wager that it also changed, the writing changed you. Do you think so?
Without a doubt. I think every book does, but particularly this one. This one has been the only one that I've been properly nervous about publishing. Because, because it's, I know at the moment that I can't do any better. You know, like I couldn't change a word in the book when I was finished with it. And I know that how hard everyone worked on it. And I thought, if people don't like this, then I've got nothing else to give. And so that was kind of frightening. Yeah, it was the first time I've ever felt that.
Like that.
That means you put all of you into it. So it must have shifted things inside of you in different ways.
But that's the problem, isn't it? When you write something that's fiction, but you have used a lot of your own experiences, it feels personal when people tear it to pieces.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's true. So you wrote it all through, but when you got your first positive feedback on it, what was that like?
It was it was the best feeling. It was like,
Right.
because you hear from the team and you hear from within the publishers, the various publishers that will publish the book, that people really like it. And I remember very early on, my German editor sent me the best email I think I've ever got. And I remember sharing it, and it was just, and I thought, this is a good sign, but still, you never really know, do you?
No.
And you don't like, and we've had early feedback so far, and the Goodreads rating is high, and it's starting to tick up. And I check it at the very beginning just to make sure that we've done our job, and then I completely
Don't go
Yeah,
there.
stay away. Stay away from it, right?
Yeah, and that way madness lies, for sure. So
And I'm just going to quote you because I love the word proper. Therein proper madness lies.
exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Chris, thank you so much for talking about All the Colors in the Dark and all your characters, Saint and Patch, and really just sharing you, because I think that really is going to connect with our listeners and viewers, and that's going to connect them to the book like it did with me. And it's just been amazing to have you here today, and thank you so much for joining us.
But before we let you go, I know that you are coming to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell right now you are in Cyprus.
I'm in
so
Cyprus.
You are all over the world.
I am.
So tell everyone out there how to connect with you and how to find you online and where they can see your United States book tour.
The best place is Instagram, and it's at Chris Whitaker author. And I'm a bit rubbish on Instagram, but I'm getting the hang of it slowly because I really want to document the tour. You know, like I want to do
document the tour,
videos. Yeah, and I'm doing it. So there's the first tour which has been announced, but then I'm coming back again for another tour. Which no one knows about. But yeah, so they're starting to put that together now, and that happens like a month.
Oh, is Cleveland on that list?
I don't know. I hope so.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Well, we can all find you there somewhere. You're wide enough tour that we can all track you down.
We can all find you.
Yeah. All right, everyone out there, be sure to tune in next week for when we will welcome the Killer Authors Club. We're going to have a different kind of show. We are going to combine with the group Killer Authors Club and talk about having group Facebook shows and how they've enriched readers' lives. So that show will air live on our Facebook page and YouTube channel on Wednesday, July 3rd at 7 p.m. And it will be posted to our podcast the next Friday.
Yes.
So thanks to all of you out there for being with us. Thank you, Chris, for being with us. And we will see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram. We're so glad you're here.